I paid for the family reunion, and everyone received a custom t-shirt. It felt like my biggest disappointment. I chose not to argue. I smiled, pulled out some papers, ripped them in half, and walked away. An hour later, they noticed the damage and started calling me repeatedly. I can't deny that they caught me off guard. It struck me hard, like a sudden wake-up call. Honestly, it felt like the last piece of a puzzle I had been trying to deny was there. I stood there, clutching the t-shirt, my eyes fixed on the bold black letters as if they were etched on my skin. It's my biggest disappointment yet. It feels good. Rachel was already giggling. Ethan intended it as a joke. Tyler shrugged lazily at me from across the table, a beer in one hand. Could you please let me know what you're working on? I have to admit it's a bit amusing. They shaped who I am. Initially, I was silent. My mom chuckled softly, as if someone had just shared a mildly inappropriate joke at a meeting. My dad shook his head, a smile on his face, as if I had just stumbled on the sidewalk. I nodded. Just once. But maybe I should take it slower. Okay. It makes me laugh. I folded the shirt neatly and placed it on the edge of my plate. My hands trembled slightly, but no one seemed to notice. Or maybe they just didn't care. I'm not sure what I was hoping for. I had paid for everything, the venue, the food, even the shirts. That's the real punchline, isn't it? They used my card to print the insult. It was just a joke. It made me laugh. I spent months planning for this weekend. I reserved the old lakeside house they used to rave about, hoping, perhaps naively, that nostalgia might soften the edges of the past. Perhaps I could finally feel like I belong again. I received a printed confirmation of my place in the family. What haunts me the most, I felt nothing, not even anger. I'm just so tired. I'm tired in a way that seeps into my bones, heavy and unyielding like cement. I pushed my chair away. I smiled. I'll be back soon. I walked upstairs to the guest room. This room is mine, as I've rented the whole place. I opened my bag. I found the folder right where I had left it, dense, clear. I feel weighed down, thoughts and emotions clinging like fog, each memory pressing on my chest until breathing feels like effort. I often wonder how I got here, lost in this heaviness that seems to define me. I needed to ease the weight somehow, to make sense of it all. I chose thick parchment for the papers, hoping they'd feel as significant in their hands as it did in mine. I thought about bringing champagne to celebrate the announcement. I walked back into the dining room and paused behind my empty chair. No one seemed to notice. I watched them too, caught up in their new shirts, to notice anything else, lost in the moment of taking a group selfie. It feels like everything aligned just right. I pulled out the folder. I slid the papers out from inside. I started ripping them apart. No words needed. Gradually, on purpose, the process unfolded one page at a time. I was the first to turn, and it felt significant. What is that? I furrowed my brow. Is that a contract? I stayed silent. My dad found himself caught in the middle. Ethan. I placed the torn papers before my empty plate. I smiled again, this time more tightly. I hope you enjoy the shirts. I walked out, no shouting. I've learned to avoid slamming doors. Footsteps on the old wood floor, the screen door creaking behind me, and the cool night air pressing against my skin. It's a moment of relief. I left, without my jacket. I realize now that I didn't need it. As I reached the car, the first call arrived. Then another. Then I added 3 more. It felt like a dam cracking open. I stayed silent. I haven't done it yet. Let them see what I have torn apart first. I want them to truly feel it. I lingered in my car for 10 minutes, hesitating to turn the key. I'm just looking at my hands on the wheel. I remain calm. I find myself feeling too calm. It felt as if my body was lagging behind the reality of what had just occurred. I remember the laughter. I couldn't shake that part from my mind. My mom, my siblings, and my dad all come to mind. It felt so innocent at the time. Being called their biggest disappointment felt like just another quirky family trait. It felt as if Tyler's jokes about my single status and Rachel's passive-aggressive holiday cards constantly hovered over me. They were anything but harmless. It had been there all along, It all started when I was 9. That year, Tyler shattered the neighbor's window with a baseball, and I found myself grounded for not intervening. I found out Rachel lied about failing a test, and I ended up getting a lecture about being a bad influence. Every mistake in that house felt like it was mine alone. This feeling persisted even when I wasn't present. I recall getting a C in math when I was 12. It was my first. I cried. It wasn't about the grade, I just knew what was ahead. At the dinner table, I felt the weight of sarcasm, my mom's dramatic sigh hanging in the air, and my dad's quiet disappointment settling in my chest. Meanwhile, I watch as Tyler can fail a whole semester yet still receive extra spending money for his efforts. At 17, I pleaded for them to co-sign a small student loan. It wasn't about money, it was just a signature. I heard the word no. It stung more than I expected. I realized I had to learn responsibility. By that time, I had already seen Tyler wreck 2 cars. I remember when Rachel moved to Europe for that photography course she was taking. I had to learn responsibility. I found myself working nights. I only managed to sleep 4 hours each day. I created something out of nothing. It started as a text service, then evolved into a subscription platform. I learned to code, to pitch, to face rejection, and to keep moving forward. I never asked for much. I wish I had received some credit. Perhaps we should say we're proud of you. I ended up being the punchline. I've always felt like the outcast. I was that person, always arriving late to Thanksgiving, likely lost in code in some basement. I kept my first 6-figure investment a secret from everyone. I paid off my student debt in one go, and I kept it to myself. When my company went viral, I felt utterly alone. I worried that if I shared, they'd only twist my words, make it a different joke, or even worse, claim it as my own. I chose to stay silent. I watched. I saw Rachel throw parties in places I knew were beyond her means. I saw Tyler sharing vague Instagram captions about mental health. It was just 2 days later when they slid into my DMs asking for money. I saw my parents wrestle with their mortgage while still splurging on anniversary cruises. I began to lend a hand. In silence, I received an anonymous donation. A transfer that can't be traced there. Even after all that's happened, I found myself clinging to the hope of family. I hoped that, by giving enough, they would finally notice me. Last Christmas, that fantasy fell apart. I invited everyone to join me at the ski lodge I rented. I remember my mom advising me to save my money, yet there she was, sharing a post about how Rachel treated them to a family-funded holiday. I made my decision then. I've completed the behind-the-scenes work. I just left the reunion. That was intended to be my pivotal moment. I'm genuine. I thought I had everything figured out. A notarized letter granting my parents early retirement. My mortgage is wiped clean. I made a down payment agreement for Rachel and her kids. I'm beginning anew in a better school district. I need a debt relief fund for Tyler. There's also a chance for a job referral, should he choose to begin anew. Every document bore my signature, sealed and printed on thick linen paper. I chose navy blue folders to complement the table decor. I reached that point. I hoped for beauty, unforgettable. I pictured my mother's expression as she read the letter. I cried, my pride. I slowly realized that the son I once saw as directionless had created something significant, offering us a second chance. I pictured my father rising, lost for words, grasping my hand. I pictured Rachel telling me, "I misjudged you." Tyler said, "Damn, bro." I really had no idea. I envisioned countless possibilities. I ended up with a t-shirt featuring a joke. I can guess what's on your mind. I wonder if they really meant it. Perhaps it was simply poor taste in humor. I wonder how they would have reacted if I had shared it with them first, but I realized they knew all along. I think, deep down, they always knew. I drove a car they noticed. The clothes I wore linger in my memory. When I brought up my company name, the reactions were telling. My mom once asked me if I was okay financially. It felt like a careful act, as if she was concerned but didn't want to pry. I felt like they just didn't care. Or worse, they actually cared, they despised the truth it revealed about them. They laughed at me. It felt simpler for them to label me as a disappointment than to confront the possibility that they were mistaken about who I am, and now they were about to discover what I had hidden in those papers. It wasn't only them. I think about everyone. I remember how everyone spoke about poor Ethan. I felt like a failure, drifting from one sad project to another, and I knew others saw me that way too. I knew they would eventually see the truth. However, the situation quickly deteriorated. I hadn't even seen the messages yet. They were already sending those. I could see the lies they were weaving around me. They were weaving their narrative before I even had a chance to speak. And that happened before I even reached the city. The story was already spreading. A call from a friend I hadn't heard from in months came first. I saw your sister's recent post, and it struck me as a bit odd. I had a breakdown at the family reunion. Everything feels okay. It feels like everything is falling apart. She called it that. I logged into Facebook, and there it was. I remember the table from that night, captured in a photo. I laid out the shirts, my glass is full of wine, a cake sits in the center. It had a caption that said, "I've realized that some people struggle to fit into family dynamics. I still love you." This applies even in moments of self-sabotage. I won't mention any names. I find myself grappling with the absence of details. It's unsettling, leaving me to ponder what lies beneath the surface. It was obvious who she was referring to. I found the comments to be filled with vague sympathy and cryptic takes. "I'm truly sorry, girl. I realize now that I truly deserve peace. I did my best. I've come to realize that some people are simply toxic. Family can be so complicated. I'm sending hugs your way. That would have been difficult to bear." Suddenly, the group chat notifications started buzzing. I often find myself capturing moments through screenshots. I received messages from my cousins. My aunt checked in on me, asking if I was okay. My mother called, tears in her voice. She informed me that during a manic episode, I threw a tantrum and destroyed legal documents. Tyler reached out to me directly. "I really need help. I embarrassed everyone. I wanted to include you, but things got awkward. That was quite something. Do you want me to be part of this?" "Okay." I chose not to respond. I just sent the original documents to my attorney. I asked him to timestamp the email. I also included my assistant in the email. I got her reply 5 minutes later. "I'm wondering if I should move up the Forbes feature to this weekend. I can put the scanned pages back in." Absolutely, that resonates with me. Here's the thing. I had choices, I had proof, I had a story. I feel weak, yet the more they spoke of it, the more perilous it felt. My family has a knack for rewriting history in no time. This time, I refused to let them escape unscathed. I allowed them to define my story for far too long. It was finally my moment. I began by quietly sharing the Forbes link. I often find myself reflecting on my experiences, grappling with my thoughts and feelings. It's a journey of self-discovery, where I confront my truths and vulnerabilities. Each moment feels like a confession, revealing layers of who I am. In this process, I realize the importance of honesty with myself, even when it's uncomfortable. It's a path that shapes my understanding of life, and only the article. I was the underdog founder quietly supporting my family's life for 10 years before finally severing ties. Inside, I found photos of the documents. I scanned it, I signed it, I feel like I've been stuck in the past. I had ripped those up at the reunion. I saw the article about the company valuation over $30 million and realized those anonymous donations were linked to me. I thought about the mortgage payments and the college funds I had quietly set up in shell accounts. I started a tech mentorship grant 6 months ago for those who have been overlooked by their families. It touched on, if only for a moment, the reason I chose to leave. I don't hold any bitterness. With understanding. My inbox was flooded within hours. It all started with the congratulations. Next came the apologies. Then came the panic. I received a voicemail from Rachel. I often wonder why someone would choose to share that with the world. I feel humiliated by what you're doing to us. Tyler's words resonate with me. Wow. Well, that's really mature of me. I wonder if you realize the impact of your actions on our family name. Then there was my mom. I feel like we need to talk. I realize now that you didn't get the joke. I thought we were just having fun. I often feel misunderstood. A simple joke. It struck me as almost amusing how they kept insisting on their stance. Yet I realize it wasn't over. I haven't done it yet. The story was starting to gain traction. The spotlight I never asked for. Things were on the verge of becoming much brighter for me. I found out a YouTube channel picked it up. It started with a podcast. A brief documentary followed. Comments poured in. I found myself caught in the middle as people chose sides. But what really stands out, I was chosen. People can spot humiliation from a distance. It's striking how someone can wear a smile and still feel like family. I attempted to respond online. I shared a rant about my instability. I was told I was twisting facts. I received a screenshot of the contract I had written for him. I've taken the time to annotate, including dates. I stumbled upon an old tweet where I joked about being the golden child. It doesn't feel funny anymore. A tech influencer I had never heard of shared the Forbes article with a caption. This serves as my reminder. Not every black sheep is truly lost. I'm just done with wolves in sweaters. I felt their attempts to tarnish my name. Go ahead, discredit me. It feels like I'm being painted as the issue. Instead, I found myself exposed. I still haven't spoken up publicly. I never did. I chose not to. I had more than just a rebuttal. I had proof. Now the world was watching me. I thought they would back off after the article, the messages, and the public unraveling of their favorite story. I thought they would, but they didn't. They only became more resolute. Tyler shared a lengthy thread accusing me of exaggerating for sympathy. I've been told I have a tendency to be dramatic. I always felt left out, even when they tried their best. I began damage control with my extended family. I wasn't well, she said. The money got to my head. I cut ties not over a t-shirt, but because I was searching for an excuse to walk away all along. My parents. I noticed they remained silent in public. I could sense they were reaching out to others. I see it now as a misunderstanding. It's a heartbreaking reality. I think he misunderstood everything. I saw them attempt to reconstruct their narrative. This time it just didn't stick. It was about the people they were engaging with. Many of them had already contacted me, in silence. A cousin once told me she always saw how differently I was treated. I remember a former neighbor mentioning how my mom called me a late bloomer, all while she bragged about Tyler's internship at a company I now had a stake in. What struck me the most wasn't their perspective. I realized I had wasted so much time hoping they would change. I overlooked the abundance in my life. I had stopped being the kid desperate for a place at their table. I finally had my own table. What came after that realization was a heavy silence. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of peace. I received a letter. I didn't mean it as an apology. No, not really. I want to say that we're still your family, we love you, and we hope you can move beyond this. I need to move past it. It felt like just a phase. I got offended and had to leave, but I returned after I calmed down. I chose not to respond. A week later, I received another one. This one felt longer. I feel so much more deeply now. I reflected on what they had done for me in my youth. Food has always been a significant part of my life. I've been on so many rides. I have a roof over my head. As if that could erase it all. I realized they never brought up the money or the years spent laughing. It was striking how swiftly they turned against me the moment I stood my ground. Suddenly, Tyler shared an old photo of us, back to our childhood, captioned it. I miss my brother. I still love him. I always will. I was tagged. So much. I felt the pressure to respond. I realize now that the only ones I truly owe are those who stood by me when I had nothing. None of them wore matching t-shirts. I chose silence. In that silence, everything changed. My husband left me. I noticed how she was really embracing the idea that we were victims of cancel culture, but he just wouldn't accept it. I lost the kids to him. I moved in with my sister. I learned it from another person. I didn't hear it from Rachel directly. I lost a speaking gig at a small event I had booked for myself. It seems that someone sent the organizer the entire article. I remember him mentioning in an old podcast how his brother struggled to finish anything he started. I remember when my parents attempted to refinance their home. I didn't make it through. A friend of mine who works in finance said the bank saw instability, not my doing, not directly, but I stopped the monthly transfer. I take responsibility for that part. I began to truly live my life. It wasn't about revenge. I've finally found freedom. I traveled, letting go of my phone for hours at a time. I acted without considering if they'd ever feel proud of me. I created it because it was my desire not to seek validation. One night not long after, I received a message from an unfamiliar number, only a single line. I'm grateful for the reminder that it's okay to walk away. That really affected me. I didn't seek the praise. It reminded me that walking away was not an act of selfishness. I needed to do it. It's about survival, not spite. I never felt anger about their lack of love for me as I desired. I felt anger as they pretended to support me, only to undermine me whenever I tried to stand tall. I found myself opening a long-forgotten box that night. I had copies of the original documents. I ripped them apart. I felt the texture of the paper beneath my fingers. Dense, cream-colored, they're still sharp at the edges from when I first tore them. It no longer felt like loss. It felt like I was finally closing a chapter. I find myself wondering where they are now. I avoid looking. I often receive updates from people, but I find myself deleting them before I can even finish reading. I really don't need to know. It's not that I don't care. The version of me that sought their approval is gone now. He's no longer here. He's really not coming back. It's been 2 years since I last shared my thoughts. It's been some time. Recently, I received an invitation to a wedding. They aren't family, a companion. I was one of the few who witnessed the worst and chose to stay. At the reception, I met someone's cousin. I remember her smile as she shook my hand and asked, "Wait, are you the t-shirt guy?" I found myself laughing. I actually laughed. I did say that. I suppose I am. I remember her saying she cut off her own parents last year. My story inspired her to take the leap she was hesitant about. I found myself at a loss for words. I still don't understand it, really. It lingered in my mind. I used to believe that leaving would mean losing everything. I've thought about giving up. I find myself surrendering. I realized it was the first time I truly stood up for myself. I often find myself wondering if they still think of me. What if they recount the story in a different way now? Maybe they miss me, or perhaps it's just the idea of having someone to control. I find it hard to reach out, neither have they. It's been a while. Perhaps that reveals it all. I wonder if I crossed a line. Did I go far enough or not? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you're interested in more stories like this, consider subscribing.